Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Crypto Cash. Thank you so much for joining me here today. This is your one-stop shop for cryptocurrency analysis, among many other things. Now, we're taking a look here today at OMG Network, which is a request from my community members. Thank you so much for requesting I cover this here, John. I do appreciate you. Also, note I'm not a financial advisor. This is for educational purposes only. So if you are new to the channel, consider subscribing, of course, but I want you to do your own research and make sure that you understand how to be more of an effective trader, right? So my point of this whole channel is just to make sure that we help educate you on best practice, but you need to take what you can from as many people as possible and develop your own style. Don't take what I have and what I say as gospel, even though I do have an 80% success rate overall. I take profits while I still can, and I have my own strategies. I like to, impart you with that, of course, so we'll take a look at those things here today. And if you do like that, obviously, join my Telegram community, my Patreon account, of course, more specifically, because I do share all my trades with my community members, buy targets, sell targets, profit targets, everything you need to know to kind of go more so on autopilot, so you're not left, having to hunt for all these deals. Because I'm more of a deal finder myself, and I look for them throughout the week, and I have the fortunate opportunity to be able to kind of look at this every single day. So either way, I just love trading, and I want to welcome you aboard if you haven't already checked out the channel. If you're new, thank you and very much welcome. So let's go ahead and get to it. I do tend to ramble sometimes. I apologize for that. Let's get to the charts. Let's check it out. All right, folks, let's go ahead and take a look here at OMG. And just before we do, we always look at Bitcoin, Ethereum first, get a baseline in the market, so know exactly what's going on, and obviously make sure we make an informed decision, because if you don't know what Bitcoin's doing, you're pretty much shooting in the dark, right? And same thing with Ethereum too. ERC20 blockchain, a lot of coins are on that blockchain. So just something to be mindful of. Now let's go ahead and take a quick look. Just before we jump in though, of course, I use TradingView.com desktop application. There's a link in the description below for a free month if you're interested. Recommend the paid versions only because you need more than 2 indicators present at any given time to do what I do on a daily basis. And if you want to follow along more effectively, then I would recommend that. Also to note here, I went ahead and marked this, and this was for my community members. So for my patrons, I went ahead and sent out an update essentially. So I just want to explain this to you so you see what I'm looking at here. And what we're looking at is there's basically the last 5 weekends, right? I didn't highlight that. What's highlighted is the Monday and Tuesday following the weekends. Okay, so these are the essentially the Mondays and Tuesdays following the weekends, which typically, if you don't already notice this, weekends are typically very bullish, at least in a bull market, of course, because people like you and I are, adding to the volume and increasing the price. See, there's more volatility because there's less volume. Now, Mondays and Tuesdays, all the volume comes into play because the whales are back in play, right? So the whales are controlling the market, for lack of better terms. And what you'll notice here is, 4 out of the last 5 weekends have experienced significant decreases in price. So this one here, here, right? So what I'm getting at is the fact that today's Monday, tomorrow's Tuesday. The likelihood of today and tomorrow retracing down back to 50,000, I think is fairly high, and just something to be mindful of. Okay, so be aware of that. It could continue straight upwards. It's hard to say. Bitcoin has its own its own rules sometimes, but for the most part, it's been working itself into these significant channels, these specific little price ranges. And I think it's likely that the price is going to come down just based on that sentiment alone. It's like 80% likely at this point based on the last 5 weekends, right? If you catch my drift. So that's kind of what I just want to start with there. And then if you look at the 4-hour chart, we've actually got some good things going though for Bitcoin. We're up over the 200 and the 50-day simple moving average. Obviously, 50,000 is a new support level. So my goal is to buy the dip and to essentially invest in Bitcoin when the price comes closer to 50. That's the goal. Again, you got to be patient for that. As soon as it just comes down a little bit, you don't just jump right in. You want to be, respectful of the market, but give those bears enough time to go ahead and push the price down. They'll do it. Trust me. We've also got a secondary support at 46,800. This has proven to be a very strong support level. So all in all, Bitcoin's in really good shape, regardless of any potential for retracement. We're still looking to be pretty good because a lot of altcoins are going to start taking off now that there's stability in the market. The price range is 50 to 64,000 now, right? Because that's where the price was at, mid-March to late April, or sorry, actually mid-April, April 17th, before Bitcoin sold off for 15% in one day. We have stability essentially in the market where we're back in that price range, the average range that Bitcoin had when Bitcoin was doing well. Okay, so moving on to Ethereum, take a look here. Kind of some sideways action from Ethereum, and the main reason why is it's just consolidating. This is very healthy because of the fact that it had almost a 20-25% increase in about a 2 to 3 day period. Therefore, it has to kind of calm down and go sideways, and that prevents a retracement, right? That prevents the price from plummeting without, if it just continued to go up, it'd have to come back down. If it goes up and over, kind of a staircase pattern, that's helpful, that's healthy, and that's a very good sign. So all in all, Ethereum's in very good shape as well. I don't see it retracing much at all, but if it were to, the 50s coming up to intersect with the price, and that could continue to push the price up to test its previous all-time high of 4160. All right, so keep that in mind too. Ethereum's doing very well. Now let's take a look at OMG network here. Let's see what's going on. And thanks again to my community for requesting I cover this. This one isn't on my radar, but I want to kind of pay close attention and see what's going on here moving forward, because it does look like it's making some moves. Obviously, in most cases, when we see this kind of price action, it's usually fundamentals. So before you invest in this, I hope you've done your research. I didn't research because I'm not invested, right? But when you do invest, always understand what the fundamentals are for any type of coin you're investing in. There's a strong chance that there's something pushed the price up because of that. It could have been a short squeeze, yes, but it's likely just an increase in price based on a lot of different, fundamentals that we can't see on the charts, right? Either way, we'll stick with the charts here, of course, because that's all we have for the moment. We have a couple good things going on here. First of all, we got the 200-day simple moving average, obviously working as a support. The 50 is pushing its way up, but here's what's really cool. We got a golden cross soon to happen. And that happens, I would say we'll see that in about 2 or 3 trading days. Oftentimes the price will break out when we have a golden cross. But the interesting thing and the odd thing about it is it's not always foolproof, first of all. But what it does is it kind of gives us that indication that, hey, something's going to take off. But what I've noticed is interesting is the fact that a lot of times just the sentiment of the fact that the golden cross will occur pushes the price up in itself. So this may not even be any fundamentals. This could just be the fact that this is an impending scenario and that the price is jumping up because of it. It's a strange anomaly I've noticed that happens sometimes, but just pay attention. That could be factoring in as well. We've got RSI well over 70, no surprise there. That's pretty standard for the price action. And of course, the MACD is converged. That was 2 days ago. So no surprise there as well. But future reference, pay attention to the MACD convergences on the 1-day and the 4-hour charts. And if you're not familiar with the MACD, it's essentially just a 12 EMA and a 26 EMA intersecting. When the price intersects in an upward fashion, that's considered a buy signal because the bulls are in control and the bears have conceded. So if you see this little red blip here, that's basically the bears that had control of the market for about 4 days. And then right here, they lost control and there was a strong push upwards. A lot of times short squeezes can occur to push the price up even further. But when this blue line intersects with the orange one in an upward fashion, that is considered a convergence. Divergence is the other way around. But yeah, this is a bullish convergence as opposed to a bearish divergence. Moving on to the 4-hour chart, taking a look here, RSI is up over 70. No surprise there. A lot of times the RSI will work as a support and resistance zone, so keep in mind 50 and 70 for RSI can work as a support, and even 70 to 90 can work itself into a support too, so it could continue to progress upwards based on that alone. I don't put a lot of weight into that, but that does happen sometimes. I prefer 50 to 70 for a good comfortable range. So I hope that the RSI can calm down. What I want to see is some sideways action from OMG here, and then another leg up to test its previous all-time high. In fact, we kind of overlooked that. Let's go ahead and take a look here first. Now, all-time high territory is a little bit higher than I thought it was. So we're looking at about 1320, 1319, somewhere in that range. Then we've also got here. And you can kind of see that. That's probably why the price rejected here today. We had a resistance level here at right about, what is that number here? 1020. So we'll say 1020. But $10.20 is a major resistance level. And if you notice, I don't know, it was tested 4 times here and twice here and twice here. So that means that level was tested 8 times and rejected. So that kind of tells us that with that being a price point that was difficult to break previously, it'll be difficult to break again. But also note too, the more often you test a resistance level, the more likely it is to break, okay? So keep that in mind. This is technically the first time it's going to try to test it again in some time. In fact, let's take a quick look at this here as well. We can see April 17th was then and there. So the price rejected there and retraced, came back up. And this was the week that Bitcoin was in the 45,000 range. A lot of altcoins took off and it jumped up to its previous all-time high of about 1320. So all in all, yeah, this makes sense as to where it's at. Also note too, see, we got any supports. Got a support level here as well. 735. All right. So it's obviously going to probably work itself into this channel for a little while, but we're going to expect to see some sideways action first before it progresses past this. That's my guess. Now let's go ahead and take a look at the 1 hour chart. What we look at on the 1 hour chart is the Ishimoku cloud. See if the price is above, which it is definitely well above. No surprise there, it's been bullish for quite some time. But just the general rule of thumb, and the reason why you look at the Ishimoku cloud is for two reasons. First of all, there's a lot of indicators present, so if you're new to the channel or new to the cloud and you just turn it on, you want to make sure that you disable these first 5 options, because as you can see, it kind of creates a lot of busyness, which isn't bad, don't get me wrong. They all serve their purpose, but the best way to understand the cloud is just kind of to use the cloud itself without those other spans, the lagging span, all that stuff. Because honestly, when the price is above the cloud, it's considered a buy signal. When it's below, it's considered a sell signal. So just say you took an entry somewhere back here. Even back here, you would have been fine because it jumps up and down. That's the state of consolidation that it was in. Then when it decided to take off, which we got a MACD convergence on the 1 day chart right here, then it started to take off, right? So that being said, always pay attention to the RSI, correction, the Ishimoku cloud on the 1 hour chart, and then look at the MACD convergence on the 1 day and the 4 hour chart as well. They usually coincide together. These ones are a little off, but it's still fairly close, all things considered. All right, now let's go ahead and take a look at TD sequential. This one's probably more relevant in the scenario, just based on the simple fact that it helps us with understanding exhaustion. And as we can see, we've gotten a few resets based on the fact that it has this up and down pattern. So what this is doing is basically jumping up, coming down, and up again. It continues this like kind of, it's not a staircase pattern, but it's close. Okay, so I mean, I think it's actually fairly healthy, because if you think about it, you know, kind of do one of these, it is essentially making steps up. And that's what a good healthy bull run will do. Yes, it jumps up and retraces, but it's essentially going up and over, right? So that's what we like to look for in a traditional bull run, because, you know, a bull run that just goes straight up to the moon, right? It's going to come straight down at least 50% to retrace its steps. That happens more often than not. So I'm confident that OMG will probably stay close to this higher point here, continue to test this resistance at about 1020, because of the fact that it's had a healthy increase, if that makes sense. So just something to pay attention to, be mindful of that. That is very helpful here to understand. And what the TD sequential is doing here is it's counting from 1 to 9, and when you get a 9, you get a reset, and it usually comes back down. Now this number keeps resetting prior to hitting 9 because of the fact that we have this, this up-down pattern. So it's not really establishing itself too much. So for lack of better terms, TD sequential isn't very helpful right now because of the way that the price action has been. But you just need to make sure to understand that regardless of TD sequential, that the price is going to increase, it's going to retrace, increase, and retrace. What it's doing is jumping up and coming down 50% of the way. So you see this here, a leg up, down 50% and up. Leg up, down 50% and up. So hypothetically, if we break this resistance, it'll shoot up past the resistance, come down to test the support level now, and then bounce and continue upwards. That's the history it's been repeating. So just keep that in mind as well. Also note too, we have a lot of volume here, but the volume is tapering off. So now that the volume is tapering off closer to this resistance, we could expect to see a retracement. Again, always look at volume and understand, because when you see significant spikes in volume followed by short periods of low volume, that means it's more volatile and it could come crashing back down a lot faster. Again, this resistance level I think is very important to be respectful of, because the fact that it will likely continue to test it, but it might continue to reject and come back down. But it does have an ascending, wedge pattern forming here essentially. So, in a lot of ways, there's a strong likelihood that it'll probably break to the upside. I would say about 70% of the time it breaks up, not down. Okay. That's just in my experience. I've noticed that over the 15 years of trading, I've seen this happen countless times, and cryptocurrency, it's even more exaggerated. But it's an interesting thing. It is very, very odd the way that it behaves. But just keep in mind, not a lot of volume, and then just recently a massive amount of volume, that you need to be respectful of that. Speaking of volume, why don't we take a look at the volume weighted average price on the 15-minute chart and kind of see what that's telling us? Because if you're not familiar with VWAP, it's probably the best indicator you could utilize on a shorter time frame. It's only relevant on short time frames because it takes the volume last 24 hours and expresses it as a price. Therefore, the last 24 hours we can kind of see here that the price should be right about $9.35. However, the standard deviation, well, currently is 5%, but it was upwards of about 10% previously. So it keeps getting rejected up at that point. Commonly, I've noticed that anytime you have a deviation from VWAP of over 10%, the price will come crashing back down. Now, you don't necessarily need to memorize that or understand that, but the simple understanding here, and the one thing you want to take away, is the fact that the VWAP is essentially the volume weighted average price, and it takes not only the volume last 24 hours and expresses as a price, but it also provides a support and resistance level concurrent with the price action. So you don't always have to create new support and resistance lines. It'll essentially work that out for you. Now, as you can see, it jumps up and goes straight. That's because of the strange amount of volume that we've been having, right? So with low volume, you see the VWAP not respond very well. So me personally, whenever I were to trade something like this would only be a swing trade or a hodl trade. I would not touch OMG with a 10-foot pole. I think that's the analogy, right? As a day trader, just based on the low amount of volume. What HBAR does the same thing as well. It has this strange peaks and valleys where it constantly moves up and moves down, where there's probably just a lot of bots trading this to drive the price up, to sell at a higher point, drive it down, sell it lower, and then people like you and I get kind of stuck in the middle. But regardless of that fact, this is still a very good, strong potential for a swing trade, so don't get me wrong there. It's just that you got to make sure to pay attention in what you're doing. So here, let's just go ahead and summarize, because there's not a lot of data on the shorter time frames that we can kind of extract here. Simply put, we want to respect these resistance levels. So the price continues to come up here and reject this resistance of $10.20. Pay attention to how it performs. First of all, if it breaks to the upside and holds above that, then it might be a good consideration to add to your position or take a position because it's working as a support level. But right now, $10.20 is not a support yet. It is still considered resistance. And the reason why is because the one-day chart hasn't closed above that yet, right? So you got to remember that. The larger time frames, the one-day chart is essentially the end-all be-all, because that's what the whales are utilizing as a baseline as well, right? So we need to kind of do what they do. So wait for the price to break above. Until then, I would consider taking your profits if you are profitable. Maybe sell 50% of your position, wait for the price to retrace a little bit. Because even though this was a moderately healthy increase, it was still, most increases like this that occur that fast come down about 50% of its original starting point. So we can expect the price to kind of average itself out around 850. Again, this depends on what Bitcoin does too. This is why we look at Bitcoin first. Because even though Bitcoin isn't controlling what OMG is doing here in the last 24 to 48 hours, it still has a very much control of the market, because again, Bitcoin sold off here April 17th. You can see a significant decrease. In fact, that's probably way more than 15%. That's 45%. So OMG came down a lot faster, a lot harder when Bitcoin sold off than Bitcoin itself. Okay, so I would say that OMG is kind of an exaggerated version of Bitcoin. If Bitcoin retraces back down to 50,000 and that support level holds, we'll still see a retracement from OMG. It just won't be super large. If we lose support of 50,000 for Bitcoin, then yes, OMG is going to come crashing back down to test its next major support level of $7.38. It's kind of the natural inevitability of altcoins that are, again, reliant on Bitcoin. So if you're going to consider taking entry here, just always look at Bitcoin, see how Bitcoin's performing. If Bitcoin continues to retrace, wait for it to retrace and bounce off the support level of 50,000, and then add to your position when OMG does the same, because OMG will essentially retrace concurrent with Bitcoin, again, to an extent. But just keep in mind, it's extremely overextended right now, and it is not, I don't know, I don't think it's worth adding money into, because it's already really close to its average true range before Bitcoin sold off, right? So, I mean, you look at this here, from February all the way up to April, the range for OMG was somewhere in the range of $5 upwards of $10, or sorry, $11, 5 to 11. And we're already at 10.20 right now. Do you think OMG is going to go that much higher? I don't know. Me personally, no. Again, just based on the technicals, I don't feel that it's going to continue. However, if there are some strong fundamentals, there's a different story, right? Do your research and find out if there is something pushing the price up like this, then it could very well continue, right? But the way I see it, I'm a profitable trader because I take profits while I still can, okay? So if you are in the green right now, take your money, don't necessarily run, close half your position, close 20% of your position, take some profits while you still can. That way you can't be upset with yourself if the price comes back down even further. Or if it continues up, you at least took some money out and you got what you could, right? So I can guarantee you in the my tenure of trading, it feels way worse to be in the green and to settle for a loss than it is to take your profits too early and to not get all the gains, right? You're still profitable at the end of the day. That's the point of this. This is not gambling. This is trading. To be a good trader, you need to make money, and to make money, you got to honor and follow a code, right? It's the trader's code. So anyways, have a good risk tolerance. Be smart and be wise, right? Try not to be a diamond hand holder unless you know OMG is going to be your only coin you're ever going to invest in. You want to put X amount into this account and never touch it for years, all good. But if you're more of a swing trader, day trader, take your money while you still can. All right, well, I hope you found benefit here. Please consider subscribing if you haven't already, and definitely check out my Patron account. I send signals to my community members, and I provide all my trades with my members, including buy targets, sell targets, profit targets, everything you need to know to kind of go on autopilot instead of having to track this every single day like I do, because I just kind of love trading, right? That's the way it goes. Either way, check that out in your own time. Thank you so much for your time. We'll see you in the next video. Have a great rest of your day.